Welcome to Two Macs and a Dram with Hector Macbeth and myself, Guy MacDonald, and we are almost upon Heritage Day 2021. And of course, as we've been talking over the last couple of weeks, we've been celebrating the fast advancing Heritage Day with this Braai event calendar that was gifted to us by Sugarbird Distillery, Kindred Spirits. Hector, it's been a lot of fun opening and popping open these doors, and I have had to really restrain myself from not going full steam ahead because I knew that we needed to do some professional tasting.
Absolutely. And it is quite a tricky one because you see, oh, I want to try that, I want to try that. So it does sort of get you. But it has been a lot of fun. I must say I've enjoyed looking at some stuff that I've never seen before, stuff that I've wanted to try and haven't tried. So, and like I said, for me, anybody who's prepared to, on his sort of his budget, include other people in, is just such an amazing thing. And yeah, well done to Kindred Spirits for doing that. And obviously a reminder to everybody, I think Thursday, today is the last day that you can enter that Jan Braai where you win 17 big format bottles of the Braai pack as well. So yeah.
Very, very nice prize indeed. I'll kick things off with this first one, which was popped out of door number 13, and it's the Empire Gin. And that comes from Pienaar and Son. Are you familiar with Pienaar and Son, Victor?
I am very familiar with them. They've done exceptionally well. The father is like probably one of South Africa's #1 brains when it comes to understanding distilling and so on. And the son is obviously, him and the son are now working together. They've moved into they're in the waterfront, what's that called? Maker's Lane? That new sort of section there, sort of behind the silo, that's it, sort of section over there. They're in over there, so you can go visit the guys and chat through them. Very passionate, but like I say, from a scientific point of view in the art of distilling, if you have a question, the father could certainly answer it. And they've done well with some of their gins. They brought out a gin last year with a smaller format packaging called the Ugly Gin, which has been my favorite from them. So if you're looking for Pienaar and Son one to try, I would certainly go for their Ugly Gin. Yeah.
And this one, of course, the Empire Gin is very much on first nosing, very much in the dry English style of gin. Rather lovely, hints of citrus there. And yeah, you get the juniper coming through as well. On the palate, beautifully balanced. Wow, getting like spice, but you know when I'm trying to think of those sweets. There's sweets that you eat, and I don't want to say fireball, but it's a similar kind of concept where you get that spice and then the sweet. That's kind of what I'm getting on the palate of this. It's absolutely incredible. Would you?
Yeah, it is. Oh.
Would you have a suggestion for a cocktail to make with this?
Well, they suggest elderflower, liqueur, and lemon, and do not stir, shake exceptionally hard. That's their kind of suggestion with this. And I kind of tend to go there. It was very interesting. We tasted this, I think, for Cheers magazine about a year ago. It was one of those that came up in the thing. And when I initially nosed it, I had this sort of dolmadas, you know, the vine leaves in vinegar kind of note. And I thought, that's interesting. But then I thought, no, it's not that. I couldn't. And then I remember this sort of globe came on, and it's actually little they say they're trying to get that cucumber note, and they're getting it, but it's a pickled cucumber. What do we call those? Gherkins. You know, when you open that gherkin, the pickled sort of cucumber, and you get that for me was, there we go, straight away. I remember coming home from school and opening those gherkins and stealing them before supper.
That's exactly it on the palate as well. And I used to do the same thing, devour those very quickly before mom caught you, and then it was dinner time.
Yeah. And you're right about that spice note as well. And I found you know, you get the jalapenos that are also sort of in the brine, and so they sort of preserve the pickled jalapenos as well. I kind of get a lot of that note as well. So it's a very interesting, but a really well-crafted spirit. For me, it's not typical juniper notes though. The spice doesn't go that way. It kind of goes more to the sort of green. like I said, Dalmadas, jalapeno chili type flavors. Yeah.
Okay, fascinating. Absolutely. And you say situated in the V&A waterfront as well?
Yes. So as you come in towards the silo, then you turn right. It's called Maker's Landing or something like that. There's lots of things going on there. There's a test kitchen in there. There's a brewery in there. It's really well worth a visit. I mean, it's an interesting part. It kind of opened up on the quiet during lockdowns, but it's been going for quite a while. There's those meat merchant guys that sell Wagyu beef. So yeah, there's some amazing stuff in there. I know SIP curated their milkshakes for them, so they really and their non-alcoholic cocktails as well. So a great place to go and visit. Not happening over there. It's quite exciting. Yeah, my first one today is this 48 gin. It's beautiful. I mean, I saw it sort of spring up it was probably 2019, late 2019, that this most beautiful packaging suddenly put up. So I did a little bit of research and I couldn't find anything on it at all. And then it turns out that it was DJ Touch. It's actually his brand that he launched.
Oh, Tivo Touch.
Yes, so it's actually his brand. A beautiful packaging and very interesting. He's quite clever. I thought about it. So 11 official languages, 11 botanicals. This was the 48th batch before he finally decided what he wanted to do. So some clever marketing over there. And so obviously this label's too small for me to read. So I went onto the website to have a look what the 11 botanicals were. And they're all pretty typical that you expect to find in a gin, except for the last one, which was Bangalala root. And I went, Bangalala root, that sounds familiar. And I went to go double check it. And it's an aphrodisiac used. And there's actually a brand called Erex that uses it quite extensively for get your libido going. So I think there should be a warning on there. But anyway,
you get quite horned up drinking that gin by the sounds of it.
And that interesting, same sort of nose as that I was talking about the other day with when we were doing the Wildre Rosewater, and I said those non-alcoholic. There isn't this big alcoholic note on it. It's got this real sort of soft, gentle, sort of lightly Dalmadas vinegar note, but it's not really clearly. It's not rose petal forward. It is there, but it's not 100% forward. On the palate, then it all comes through. Typical, drinks exactly like a typical gin would drink. Got a nice hit of juniper berries. And it's not like, it doesn't go into that Turkish delight like the other rose ones do. It hints at that there's rose in here, but it almost makes you think more of sort of just walking in a rose garden and getting a slight scent in the afternoon with a sort of spicy backbone. That's kind of what it reminds me of. But nice, quite easy drinking as well. So I would think just a little bit of tonic with this and some pink peppercorns, as they suggest, I think will do really, really well. A little fresh strawberries maybe. But also one to definitely look out for is banging that cucumber or basil in it. You get those fresh green notes, which will really build your spice level.
Have you tasted the cucumber tonic that's been produced by Schweppes?
I haven't tasted theirs. I don't know if you remember previously we did the lamb and wat one where we use it, which it absolutely enhances gins because it brings up both their woody and their green notes. Both get elevated. So I think cucumber definitely works well with gin, and fresh cucumber as well works exceptionally well inside gin.
I've been trying it out, but maybe I need to revert back to the better brand, as you just mentioned there. Been a little bit cheapskate recently. So we move on to the next one, which came out of door number 16. And it's got a fantastic label, Granny's Bear. You probably have heard of this. I've seen this on shelves before, if I'm honest. And it's Granny's Bear triple distilled vodka from Kindred Spirits. A sipping vodka that's made with Granny's family recipe. So Granny must have been really on it. Always triple distilled in single batches. It's made in South Africa using spring water from Table Mountain. And they say that's to create the perfect African and a Russian experience. Now, they say that it's best served neat and straight out of the freezer. Now, I'm wondering how this is going to be, because I haven't put it in the freezer, because obviously I want to get all the subtleties with it. So, yeah, mine's at room temperature, not as recommended serving. But it's interesting because on the nose, there's quite obviously a kind of a citrus peel aroma that comes through. But then there's something else, which last night I was busy crushing peppercorns into a bolognese that I was making. And this kind of reminds me of kind of crushed pepper. And I want to say kind of a mix, because I did red peppercorns, I did white peppercorns, and I did black. So I can't tell you which of the three. I would say it's kind of a blend of those three. It's not very powerful as an aroma. The citrus is more at the forefront for me. Oh, on the mouthfeel, very, very silky mouthfeel, very nice. Also seem to change my accent for some reason when I take soup. Not sure why, but very, very good. Well, I don't know Russian slanja, but
yeah, I'm also not sure. I think they say skol, don't they? The Russians, they say skol, yes. Yeah, it was interesting. I was reading the kindred spirits have been quite clever in all their things that they came up with. When I did have a quick nose on that one, very, very neutral. I mean, they say Table Mountain water, and I think that's about all I got as well, was that neutral water note. But on the palate,
really?
On the palate again, it's got that, like I said, all of these. I've enjoyed drinking all of the kindred spirit releases. They are all sweet though. So if you're a sort of person who doesn't like the sweeter sort of spirits in life, then the kindred spirits are probably not for you. But if you do, and I think the South African palate is a very sweet palate. So I think it really does speak to the South African palate in that sweet note. But yeah, it was again a very pleasant drinking vodka. And they said Granny Siberian recipe. So I'm not sure if she escaped after making that vodka and brought that with her, or if she's been sent back there and sent the recipe from there. I'm not sure.
But Granny very good at what she does, because this is a beautiful vodka, very smooth drinking, probably the smoothest vodka I've ever tasted, if I'm honest. And yes, you're completely right there with the sweeter notes that come through. And I think, yeah, if you just look at South Africans' foundation for their favorite dop, sugar is always there, isn't it? Brandewyn and Coke. So yeah, it makes sense that, as you say, that we have this kind of tendency towards sweeter drinks. So would you, having tasted it yourself, would you recommend you just have it neat, or would you blend it with something, mix it with something?
Yeah, look, for me, I'm not a big neat vodka drinker. I don't think that's, for me, it doesn't make sense, why. Yeah. So for me, vodka is made for using cocktails, because you basically, you want to put that spirit in when you don't want to celebrate the spirit itself. You just want to up the alcohol level in a drink. So whether it's like a Bloody Mary, or whether it's a old-fashioned type of drink, you rather want to enhance those flavors than the vodka. So it's not about the vodka, it's about the alcohol enhancing those existing flavors. So for me, this would work really well in a Bloody Mary. But then I think it gives you scope to go really savory inside there, because you've got the sweet note coming through from the vodka. I think you can really push the savory boundary. So you could crush peppers and olives and that in your Bloody Mary mix and get that real sort of briny note going forward to counterbalance that sweetness. And I think you could come up with something quite special. We always used to, on the other hand, to cut the acidity, we always used to put sherry in to sweeten it. But with this vodka, I don't think you'll need the sherry part, because the vodka brings the sweetness. So you could actually up the savory note. And I would probably go with some green olives crushed in with peppers and your tomato juice and a bit of lime always, and black pepper and Worcester sauce. And there we go.
Sounds delicious. Perfect Friday accompaniment.
For breakfast, yeah, breakfast. Good start to the day. My next one is whiskey, which is the only whiskey in the pack. This is from the Carlosdorp guys there, or Boplaas. This is a small batch single grain whiskey finished in both ex-bourbon casks and ex-brandy casks, they say. It's very interesting. Boplaas in a very short matter of time. I mean, when I say short matter of time, I think they've been distilling for over 100 years if you go back to the original farm. But then if you go and visit there, you'll see the stills have got some holes that were punched into them when they were told they weren't allowed to distill anymore. But I think their stills have probably been up and running about 10 years again. And for those first 5 or 6 years, I think they released one brandy, which was like one whiskey, which was like a blend. And then they released a single malt 6-year-old. And then they were quiet. And then I think in this last year, they've probably released 8 or 9 different wood finishes and so on. So they are definitely upping their game with releases point of view. And this, for me, just a nice, beautiful, easy, light sort of nose. I mean, it's one of those. I mean, it's quite hard to put my finger down on it, but it does have that sort of soft, typical vanilla note that you find from the bourbon barrel. I think the brandy does lend a little bit of buttery toast, and because it's probably a limousine oak barrel that we're looking at. So it probably does end a little bit of that toast, but it's all very, very subtle, you know, so there's buttered toast, softly buttered toast, but nice, easy nose, nothing complicated. On the palate, beautiful viscosity, so it's got this sort of quite a rich note, but the spirit is clean, and it's got a real sort of interesting sort of balance between a typical grain style. Most grain whiskies at this age I find quite hard to drink because they're quite sort of spirity. This one isn't quite as spirity on the start. The mid palate is quite balanced and beautiful, and it's got a little bit of the aging, and I think the faster maturation in South Africa is helping it a little bit.
Yeah.
But that finish note, you get a little bit of a bitter tone coming through, which is sort of typical in younger grain whiskies. You know, they just require a little bit more time in oak for my personal preference of taste. But really, a great little drinker, nothing wrong with it at all, and highly recommended. You know, the other big company that does grain whiskey, you know, is probably better priced, but I think competitively from a flavor point of view, this one is a little bit more complex. So definitely a well-made whiskey, I think. Yeah.
Sure, that's some high recommendations coming from you there, Hector. Interesting. No age statement on here. So do we have any idea of how old it is?
I think it's an 8-year-old, but I'm not 100% sure. It could be, you know, this is also a thing that's been interesting with this pack. Some of the stuff was made just for this Jan Braai pack. But not all of that has been sort of stipulated to us. But I think that the traditional one that you find in the big bottle format, I think was an 8-year-old. But I speak 100% on correction. I don't know what the age statement of this is, but it certainly doesn't taste young.
But your nose and palate are telling you it's roughly around 8 years old.
Yeah, look, I think so. You know, and you might find it's a 3-year-old brandy that he just sets a 3-year-old spirit that he just had some really good oak that gave him the maturation that's required to drink like that. But I think it drinks as a more mature than 3-year-old. But yeah, no, a really good little crack at a single grain whiskey there.
I've got a 5-year-old. They've declared it as 5 years old, pot still brandy, named as a kind of a wild card brandy in the box. I don't know if you can see it there. There we go. Joker, the Joker Brandy. And it's rather interesting in terms of its color. Initially, I thought, sure, it's very light for a brandy. Look at that. Can you see the...
Yeah, especially for 5 years in oak.
Yeah. Very sweet on the nose, if I'm honest. There is caramel, there is raisins, there is also pear, and I want to show you. I've actually got very ripe pear that I've been nosing to get my. So I actually cut one just now. So there's hints of that as well. Ripe pear, because often, I don't know about you, Hector, but I find pears very much like avocado pears, because you buy them, they're not ripe, and you leave them and you try and eat one and it's still not ripe, and then before you know it,
Yeah.
they're ready for feeding the birds.
No,
So
absolutely. Yeah. I think the thing with a trick often missed with people, specifically in South Africa, is that they don't like to poach pears. But I promise you, a well-poached pear is such a beautiful thing to eat. It really is, you know. So when you look at that pear, when you first bite, wait 2 days and then go bite into it. And if it's still a little bit hard, just skin it, take the pips out, and poach it in either a Viognier or a red wine with some cloves and some cinnamon. I promise you, you won't regret it. It's just, it's such a beautiful thing to eat. It really is.
sure, I must try that, definitely, because the birds have been benefiting here. This on the palate, if you can imagine walking into a cellar or with oak barrels, that kind of aroma is the flavor. It's almost, and I don't want to say it's like you're licking an oak barrel. It's not that, it's similar, but it's that kind of context. There's lots of vanilla there. There's also, for me, yeah, the caramel that came through on the nose, not so much on the palate, definitely vanilla, and sweet. But in a way that you could enjoy this neat without a mixer, in my opinion. I don't know about you, Hector. The recommendation is ginger, beer, and lime, and I get the lime is obviously to offset the sweetness.
Yeah, so their recommendation is just perfect for mixing, and I kind of felt that this is ginger beer lime material. So ginger beer lime and rum is a dark and stormy if you use Gosling rum specifically. So this reminded me more of a sweeter rum than it did of a brandy. It had that kind of real molasses note about it. So for me, this is dark and stormy country, you know. So I would bang that in, and get, if you can get that extra kwetzer from Stony, that real spicy ginger beer,
Yes.
and bang that in with that shot of lime. It is a phenomenally addictive drink, though. You might not make the 24th if you get stuck into a few of those, because they go down so easy, and going into summer, it is absolutely amazing how well they drink. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the one I've also got a brandy here. So this is the Jan Braai Brandy. For this one, there's obviously not that much information other than it was done by Sugarbird for them, and they said it was really just for the year. So this is only being released in the calendar as the miniatures, so you won't be able to find this anyway. But they did do 1 750 ml for the person who's going to win the prize of the 17 750
Sure.
ml. So there's one. So basically, there's 1 750 ml, and this is your only opportunity to try this brandy. So a little bit different from that point of view. They claim it's a pot still blend. I don't know if they gave an age statement. I just want to see what they said there. Yeah, they don't give an age statement on the actual thing over there, other than just to say that it is one of their pot still blends. And for me, the nose is, for me, this is fresh apple and pear that we're getting over there. So when it's still very green in its note and sort of light, so definitely not like, definitely not Guy's type of pear. More. So freshly cut, you know, as you cut into a red or a green apple, and you get that real sort of almost like a chalky effervescent fruit type note on it, you know. So it reminds me more also pine needles, that kind of real fragrant type of character. On the palate, goes back to that sweet palate up front. You never say that this was, I'd never say that this was grape, you know. So it doesn't remind me of brandy at all. It's like a, although I suppose if you're really drinking those sweet fruity sort of Shannons and bars, they do drink you know, those grape juices do taste more like this. But it reminds me far more of apple and pear juice, sort of going into those characters. Yeah, but it's an easy, simple drink. Once more, I think again, it'll mix pretty well. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with sipping it just like that. For those of you that prefer brandy, just neat. But I think maybe an old-fashioned would also be called for, you know, where you stir it up with a bit of orange and bitters.
Because there's quite a spiciness on the side of your palate that comes with it. Initially, there's like a blast of spiciness that then. But yeah, I agree with you in terms of the mid palate is very soft and gentle, doesn't demand too much. You've got me dopping out the bottle, Hector.
Again. It's a tasty. Yeah.
So for you, out of the calendar, what were some of the standout spirits for you?
I definitely think so. It was the first time I ever tried that Kindred Spirits, the Anno Dollas Mortos, which is something to do with death. That was from Kindred Spirits. That was that agave spirit of theirs. You know, I thought, okay, let's see. And I got that typical South African fakey green note, which I wasn't too impressed with. But the palate I was quite impressed with, that it was actually quite subtle and subdued compared to the other South African agave spirits that are out there. So big tick box for me. It was a surprise, and it was a good surprise to find that. Then from a purist sort of point of view, Hope's Rum Agricole, it's just so well made, that rum. I really love that style. It's got those nostalgic notes that remind me of playing rugby in the Free State. But then it also goes and got this beautiful rich Cuban finish, you know, which takes you back to Cuba. Which, so, you know, amazing how you can be transported with aroma to different parts of the world.
Can I interrupt you and tell you that since you told us about that memory of playing rugby in the Free State, I've been spraying deep heat on my knee ever since. Because I just love that smell so much. And you reminded me. So now the can's finished, I'm going to go buy another one.
Classic. And then Sugarbird Brandy. The Sugarbird Brandy for me was absolutely brilliant. You know, I think, and I was quite fortunate because I got it in the mystery and in the regular. So I got two of them. So I'm quite happy with that. I also got I think it was the XO from Joseph Barry, which I haven't actually opened yet, but that's a great little whiskey to have, a little brandy to have. And then just from a pure nose point of view, completely blew me away was that New Harbour Distillery Brandy. That nose alone is worth buying a bottle of that. Like I said, it was exceptionally sweet drinking, but that I could just sort of nose that every single day and be happy with just nosing it. So those, I think, were the one. And then, of course, we've left this rum to last for the two of us, you and I, to discuss. This is the Sugarbird's new release. So, So have you still got some left?
Let me just double check here, because I'd started on it and I remember putting it back in the box when you said we need to discuss this. Because I think I have finished it, unfortunately. Yeah, I had a good go on that. I enjoyed it thoroughly, but yeah.
I must say, this one's nose and the New Harbour Distillery's brandy are like joined at the hip, man. So you're walking into a sweet shop and you're getting that sweet treacle and that beautiful salted caramel, vanilla syrups, and I mean, it's just lush sweetness. There is an extra note in the rum that I didn't find in the brandy, where they refer to Jamaican style rum. Now, for me, Jamaican style, you know, it's a term that's quite loosely like bandied about, you know. Like, what does that mean? Now, for me, when someone says Jamaican rum, I'm thinking dunder and muck goals and all that sort of thing, which gives you that real funky note. But I don't get that on this at all. So I don't know what their sense of Jamaican rum means, what they're actually saying this. I'd actually love to sit down with him again and go through this. They are, I did see today on their Instagram feed, they are giving away some of this rum as well. So there's a second competition you can enter because they're about to launch this now at month end. First time into the marketplace, but you can actually win a bottle if you follow their Instagram. There's a link there as well for you to go and do it. They say it's been triple distilled. And then they say it's also been infused with their fynbos. So that's what I'm not sure how they've done it. Now, if you remember the brandy, he infused it not by using the botanicals itself, but actually using a honey that he put in. So they dripped it through honeybush, but then also added the fynbos honey. So I don't know how they've got the fynbos in here, because I don't pick that up on the nose at all. I do kind of get that molasses backtone that you sort of pick up in the production of rum. But it's got such a beautiful treacle nose. It's got a little bit of nuttiness, a lot of sweetness, and then already pre-mixed sort of rum and cola type character coming through. On the palate, definitely that sort of, I understand that the reference to the Jamaican rum on the palate, it definitely goes that way. It sort of starts out that way, but again, an overriding sweetness that I found with this. So it actually takes me more to the Don Papa rum that we tasted, because it's got that same level of sweetness that you find in it.
I was just going to say, it is an initial blast for a second or two of Jamaican rum and flavoring, but then there is that sweetness that comes in.
Yeah, because look, for me, a Jamaican rum is all about that funk note. I mean, it's very unique. You don't find that style of rum anywhere but in Jamaica, where it kicks in, and that's obviously because of their use of mud pits. And that's a complete different science, which almost nobody understands. You know, the Jamaicans are the few people that still do it. I mean, they don't inspect it too much and advertise it too much because they're scared that they get shut down from a hygiene point of view. But that dunder that's used in Jamaica sets them apart from making rum anywhere else in the world. I don't find that in here, so I'm not sure what they're saying, and maybe they are using muck pits and dunder here as well. I'm not sure, but
Hector?
Yes.
I'm just going to interrupt you and say, for those that are watching that might not know exactly what you're talking about, why don't you clarify a little bit on that, the mud pits and, and the dunder?
So you'll remember when we talk about American bourbon and they're making their sour mash and how they retain the feints that were left behind from the last distillation. They use that on the next first batch. So that's what they do. So that's what we call that dunder when you're making rum. So what the Jamaicans do differently is they don't just put that back to the next distillate that they're using. They actually put it in what we call a muck pit, which is basically a stainless steel vat where there's a bacterial growth inside, and that's just left there. So they just keep putting them back in there, until they've got this whole pit full of stuff. Then when the next one comes, they introduce that into their wash, and that helps kickstart the fermentation. And then they add what they call flavoring, which is basically bower oil vinegars, and they stick that into the dunder as well. So you're getting this bacterial reaction and fermentation happening, which is completely unique to them. And no one else really does that. I mean, there are some guys that do it on smaller batches, but this is sort of common there. And that's basically what it is. And it's quite, from a scientific point of view, it's exceptionally complex what they're doing. And there are different ways to do it. But they're the guys that are far ahead of it. But there is no denying when you've tasted a Jamaican rum that you know exactly what I'm talking about when I call it that funk flavor. I don't know if you remember, we tasted that Hamden not that long ago at the Italian kitchen. Remember, we had the one rum.
Yes.
And remember, we got that big, funky rum in the middle of that tasting. That's a Jamaican style rum. Now that's what I'm talking about. Now, I don't find any of that real funk note inside here. It's very subtle, but again, you see, maybe they did do that, but because they added the fynbos back with maybe a honey again or something like that, that's maybe why we're getting that sweet note that goes past it. So yeah, I'd love to get Matt back in and have a little chat through this rum, so get his point of view exactly what they're referring to as Jamaican.
Very interesting, and I'm glad that I had left some behind in the bottle, in the box, especially for this. And what would you recommend? I mean, it kind of feels that it's got enough to it that it'll shine in a cocktail? What kind of cocktail would you recommend with this particular rum?
So again, that dark and stormy would work really well.
Okay.
Ginger beer, lime, and that. But you can also go into sort of it really, for me, this is, of all the South African rums I've tasted, they none of them really capture the sort of rum style of Barbados, and I think this is more like that. So you can really use it in any sort of rum type cocktail, any tiki drink, but I think it will go really well in a daiquiri as well. Mai Tai obviously as the dark component, mix it with a white rum and then some, and then orgeat added to that. So yeah, that's the beauty with rum, you know. Rum gives you a far wider spectrum than any other spirit to mix with, you know. It really does. So you can introduce big savory notes, you can introduce big sort of citrus notes, you can go with botanicals, you can go with honeys. All of that works with rum. Rum is definitely by far one of the best mixing drinks you'll ever find. But just sitting here now, that real sweetness, I think I would go back to that apple and lemongrass vermouth that we made. So we made our own lemongrass vermouth and just shake that up with a little bit of lime. And I reckon you'll be cooking with gas there as well. But for those of you that partake in smoking, there's nothing wrong with grabbing yourself a good little Cuban cigar and just sipping this gently with your Cuban cigar. I think it'll work really well there too.
Brilliant. That's great advice. Now I know what to do with that spare Cuban that I've got lying there. I'm going to send him back to Cuba, but now I know what to do. And just a reminder, of course, that if you hop onto Sugarbird Distillery's Instagram page, you can light up a braai and win with Sugarbird and friends a full set of 17 spirits that are featured in this braai event calendar. Well, I hope it doesn't. There we go. And you'll win the full set valued at over 5,000 Rand. Sure, that is an incredible prize.
Proper prize. I think, so, unfortunately, yes, that's the end of the Jan Braai calendar. For us, in any case. Hopefully we get one for Christmas too.
Or we will make one for Christmas. Remember the crackers that we had? I think we could make one of these as well, Hector.
Absolutely. You pick 12, I'll pick 12.
Yeah, there it is. And yeah, of course, until we speak again, I need to find something to cheers you with now. Hold on. Let's put some of this in the glass here. Yeah, have a fantastic braai day. What are you planning to cook on the braai, Hector?
Mine's standard. My wife doesn't allow me to cook without some lamb ribbickies. And then I always go to the local guy around the corner, old Bastas. He always makes a good sausage. And then I like to put a picana on, you know, the tri-tip, the beef tri-tip, and do the whole thing whole, and maybe a couple of chops. But yeah, that's a typical braai at my house. Eh? I'm going to a potjie at a friend's house because, well, I mean, what other reason do you need to sit around with friends catering while the poor guy is under pressure, opening the pot lid, and we're all looking. Yeah, no, I don't think that's ready yet. Are you allowed to open the pot? That's the question. That's the burning question. Who's right? Are you allowed to open the pot or aren't you?
No, Braai Master must do it, but that's when we all lean in and say, how's it looking? Are you happy? Huh?
Yeah, I'll never forget, we went camping once with this family, and my son, he was about 9 or 10 at the time. And because we were camping, we had made this potjie, and the potjie was great, but there was no crockery other than paper plates. And he just looked up to them and he said, fucking paper plate. That was the end of that conversation. So everyone thinks, oh, geez, how's your son? He's such a son. I said, yeah, but to be fair, you just put stew on a paper plate.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. Hector, have a wonderful braai day. And of course, until we see you again on 2 Max in a Dram, we say,
Slanjava.
Slanjava.
Cheers.